Good morning. It's Friday. We made it to the weekend just about. We've got some good stuff to look forward to this weekend across Hampton Roads and across parts of the country. And we also have to deal with some more storms. And that's been a big issue across the south central U.S., especially Oklahoma and Texas. There's a lot to cover for you today on this Friday edition of the Weather Desk. And as always, we are tackling today's top weather headlines. Let's start off with our first topic. Again, severe weather wrap up from yesterday. Storms across the Ohio River Valley, back down through the lower Mississippi Valley into Oklahoma and Texas. Report of a tornado. We'll show you some video on that coming up. We're also going to talk about where those storms are headed next, and they are going to progress a little farther to the east, but we'll show you what areas are going to be under the gun today and into the weekend. We also have a look at April for Hampton Roads. We've wrapped up the month. We're off to a warm start now that we're into May. We've had some really hot weather. Yesterday's high in Hampton Roads, 90 degrees. We're normally at 75, so just 4 or 5 degrees off the record high, 15 degrees above average. And we're going to talk about why some allergies seem to be getting worse. I know I've been suffering this spring. You may be dealing with the pollen, whether it's been tree pollen or now the grass pollen starting to show up a little bit. We'll talk about that, and Ginger Z has a look at how the climate change is starting to affect some of the pollen levels. We're also going to take a look at this warmer weather bringing another threat we don't really like to think too much about, but we need to, and that's increased tick activity. So we'll talk about what those concerns are and what you can do to protect yourself. And then again, we're going to look ahead to the weekend. If you are here in Hampton Roads, I'll have a really detailed look, but we'll talk about some general trends across the country as well. So let's dive in, and we're going to start off with the severe weather outlook. And again, the wrap up from yesterday, severe weather back across Oklahoma, down into Texas. A lot of the storminess has been working eastward. We had some big storms yesterday across the Ohio River Valley. Things not as active right now, but you can see there are still areas with energy and a lot of rain back across northwest Arkansas. The line of rain extending down along the Red River, right along Oklahoma and Texas, the state line there, and that's going to sag south. So as we take a look at what's happening here, let's jump in with our storm reports. And you can see, again, reports of hail across Arkansas, southern Missouri, southern Illinois. It extends off to the north. We'll come back to these storm reports back across Texas and Oklahoma in just a moment. But one of the things we talked about yesterday on the weather desk was how this was going to expand eastward. And we had the severe weather potential across Ohio and even western portions of Pennsylvania. Well, you take a look, numerous reports of damaging winds across central and southern Pennsylvania and back across the Great Lakes coming off Lake Erie. A lot of strong winds, numerous reports of damage, and some hail there. So again, the storms have been performing as the models have been suggesting. We've had a good handle on how things are developing and where they're headed. I want to take you back to Texas and Oklahoma. And you'll notice here there are reports of flooding, and we'll address those. But there's one report of a tornado down here, and you can see this came from the city of Briggs in Burnett County. Again, reports of 5 homes damaged, and there was a car that was injured as well, or a driver of a car was injured as well. National Weather Service is going to get out and survey the damage, and we'll get more on the exact details of that tornado. But we're now getting a look at the strong storms that rolled through central Texas, and this is a great shot from yesterday. It is what appears to be that tornado. This was in Briggs, just north of Austin. Again, 5 homes damaged there, and a survey crew will head out today to confirm the tornado, and they'll assess its maximum winds based on the damage to those homes and some other structures. As I mentioned, another car also caught up in that tornado with an injury to the driver. All right, just west of Austin, there were reports of hail the size of grapefruits. Think about that. Some parts of the county saw between 2 and 4 inches of rain. We're told at least 1 home and 1 large outbuilding were destroyed, along with downed power lines and heavy debris on the roads. More heavy rains are expected this afternoon across central Texas and the areas under risk for excessive rainfall, and that could lead to flash flooding. I'm going to show you those outlooks here coming up in just a moment. Now, speaking of flooding, I told you about Lexington in Oklahoma. They're dealing with the aftermath of heavy flooding from a deadly severe storm on Wednesday. These are pictures of the damage just 40 minutes south of Oklahoma City. Floodwaters are still very high in Lexington, forcing residents from their homes. Kilby Terrell shows us more of the aftermath.
Homes like these behind me are underwater across Lexington. So, since Wednesday morning, firefighters from all over have been using boats to help anyone who couldn't get out.
Everywhere is underwater, pretty much.
Lexington looks like a lake.
Boats filled with firefighters have been making their way around Lexington since Wednesday morning.
As the water kept cresting and as we were getting more rain, as it was rising, we realized that there were some houses and stuff that were going to be underwater, and then we started getting reports of people that were wanting to be rescued out of their houses.
They've rescued at least 9 people from homes sitting underwater.
There's water in their homes, and so they're trying to gather what they can and their animals.
Locals tell me some of the areas are already prone to flooding, but this is some of the worst they've seen.
It looks like a boat ramp out here. This is a road. This road leads all the way down to that stop sign over there on Main Street.
So firefighters say for now, they're just waiting out the water and are ready to help anyone who needs them.
We're hoping that the water crests here pretty soon, or it'll quit rising. We'll be here for a while and probably coming days, I imagine.
Colby Terrell, KOCO 5 News.
So let's take a closer look at Oklahoma. Again, that area, Lexington, south of Oklahoma City, they're kind of on the cusp of some light rain this morning. But when you get the heavy rain that these areas have had over the past several days, it takes a while. Sometimes you get flash flooding immediately, but a lot of times they feed into rivers that come up, and sometimes that flooding can be exacerbated over days. So this is what we're looking at. We have numerous flood warnings out right now for parts of Oklahoma and North Texas. Flood advisory here and some more flood warnings and advisories extending from eastern Oklahoma over into Arkansas. A lot going on with the system there. Now, we're going to talk about the severe weather outlook and what's going to happen today. I said, we'll take a look back at what happened yesterday and where the storms are headed next. While we have rain out in this part of the country right now, later today with the daytime heating, it's this area shaded in orange. This is a level 3 or enhanced risk area for severe storms. And it looks like we will see another outbreak with numerous areas expecting strong winds, maybe some large hail, and even tornadoes. So that's the level 3 threat in here from Kentucky through Tennessee, northern Alabama, Mississippi, back across southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. Level 2 threat back across parts of Ohio, much of West Virginia, western parts of Virginia and North Carolina, and then that goes all the way down through New Orleans. You can see a slight risk, level 1, or excuse me, a marginal risk, level 1, all the way up across Pennsylvania, up into New York. Even western parts of Massachusetts and southern Vermont could see a few stronger storms. And we've got that potential, again, over the mountains and pushing into the Piedmont of North Carolina. That's the general severe weather outlook for today. Let's get into some more detail here with different threats. For strong winds, again, that area expecting to see the strong winds right in there in that enhanced or level 3 risk area. All right, as we take a look at hail, there's one area in particular back across Texas, this area hashtag. Here you're looking at hail potentially 2-inch diameter or greater. Severe hail just needs to be 1 inch in diameter. You get to the size of a quarter. When you're talking about 2 inches, now you're talking golf ball size hail and larger. So I think that's going to be a real concern. South of Dallas, I think, Austin maybe, back down areas just off to the north and northwest of Houston. So we'll be watching for that all across central Texas. Now, the other threat, again, tornadoes. And for this area, again, a 2% risk of a tornado developing within 25 miles of any point you see here in this yellow. So could there be additional tornadoes? Yeah, the threat is higher than, a normal day, clearly. But it's not a guarantee that we're going to see a widespread outbreak. Still, with all of the storms that develop, meteorologists throughout this part of the country will need to watch very carefully to see if we do get some isolated spin-up tornadoes. It's certainly something that we could see later today. How about tomorrow? Well, tomorrow, that watch area, or the area that is under the level 1 risk, really switches to the east here. You don't see any level 2 or slight risk. You certainly don't see any level 3, that enhanced area. It's all just a marginal risk, but it extends all the way up to southern New Hampshire, and again, much of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, probably Long Island's okay, but areas, say New Jersey and just off to the west of New York City, back down across the state of New Jersey, and then you get down into Delaware, obviously Maryland, Northern Virginia, most of Virginia, and much of North Carolina, down through South Carolina, the southeast. We'll take a closer look at the area here in Hampton Roads in just a moment, because there's really a cut line right across our immediate area. We do have strong wind potential across the Piedmont of Virginia and North Carolina areas out to the west and down to the south. And that larger hail potential, again, really confined out to that area to the west. So I mentioned we'd take a closer look at Hampton Roads. Here's where we're broadcasting from. If you're watching us outside of southeast Virginia or northeast North Carolina, you're wondering, hey, who's this guy talking? My name is I'm Meteorologist Craig Moeller. I work here at 13 News Now, and this is where we broadcast from, Hampton Roads, right at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. So for our viewers that are down in northeast North Carolina, most of you in pretty good shape, but for Saturday, there will be the risk, that level 1 threat for areas out to the west. That includes western Suffolk, Isle of Wight, Franklin, Southampton, Sussex. You can see Surrey, these areas all out to the west. On the peninsula, parts of Newport News, especially central and western parts of Newport News. Up around York, even Pecosin there needs to be mindful. Hampton, not under that threat. You come south side, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and eastern Suffolk not under it. As I mentioned, North Carolina is okay, and the eastern shore, again, not under that threat for severe weather. But northern neck, middle peninsula, and those areas out to the west, we need to be watching, and we will. All right, we're going to come back out to Saturday just to show you as we get into Sunday here. So Saturday, you saw what the severe weather threat is. On Sunday, it's really confined to South Carolina, parts of southern North Carolina, and the Georgia coastal areas. And it's just a level 1 threat there on Sunday. So the threat goes down, but we're actually going to see our rain chances going up here in the mid-Atlantic. All right, now let's talk flood potential. And as we mentioned, as we were showing you that tornado video and the storm damage video from Briggs and around the Austin area as well, we were talking about that increased excessive rainfall potential for Texas. Look at this, level 2 or slight risk for excessive rainfall, which leads to flash flooding across Texas, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and back up across northern parts of Mississippi and into western Tennessee. Again, around New Orleans, kind of on the edge there, level 1 or marginal risk for flooding. The marginal risk also extends up to include Cincinnati, southern parts of Indiana, much of Ohio, and obviously Kentucky there. So that's a look at the excessive rainfall projection. This is through Saturday morning. As we go Saturday morning to Sunday, again, the heavier rain likely to be out to the west. And then as we get into Sunday, it does get closer to Hampton Roads. I'd say southern Pennsylvania, much of Maryland, certainly the district, the D.C. area, and the down across the Piedmonts of Virginia and North Carolina. Hampton Roads not looking for excessive rainfall, but I do think we will see our chances for rain, especially as we get into Sunday, and it'll be kind of hit and miss later today and into tomorrow. So as we take a look here, the big storms really erupting again across Texas, Louisiana. We'll see some of this activity working eastward. That's why we've got that severe weather outlook for those areas. As we get into our Saturday morning early, few spotty showers out to the south. We're still mainly clear to partly cloudy across Hampton Roads. More rain across Alabama into Tennessee and Kentucky, and more around the eastern Great Lakes. As we head into Saturday afternoon and evening, that's when we're going to see the chances for the excessive rainfall back across central parts of Virginia and North Carolina, back through the mountains, and that heavier rainfall extending up into Pennsylvania, maybe even parts of New England. So a lot to watch here. Stronger storms then, more likely down across Alabama and into Georgia. Here locally, we're going to turn and shift from the severe weather outlook for the next couple of days to the broader hurricane season. You know, it's almost here. As we take a look at the tropics right now, things still pretty quiet in the Gulf, pretty quiet across the Caribbean. There are a few little clusters of showers and storms, and the water temperatures there pretty warm. So we do want to keep an eye to things. The main development region for the bulk of the heart of the hurricane season is still quiet right now. But I do want to talk to you about this because we do have warm sea surface temperatures. And with the hurricane season almost here, you remember yesterday on the weather desk, we told you about some changes to the way the National Hurricane Center will alert us to possible tropical systems. Well, there's still more to cover. Meteorologist Evan Stewart shares more of the changes for this coming hurricane season.
We're about a month away from the start of hurricane season, and this year the National Hurricane Center has changed how it issues alerts for potential tropical cyclones, or PTCs. What is a PTC? Well, it's a disturbance that could potentially develop into a tropical storm or hurricane. Now, it's a designation the Hurricane Center uses so it can issue advisories, watches, and warnings for systems that haven't yet reached the threshold of a tropical depression, but they do pose a threat to land areas. Now, prior to this year, advisories could only be issued 48 hours ahead of watches and 36 hours ahead of tropical warnings. Now, advisories for PTCs can be issued up to 72 hours in advance, and that's regardless of whether the watches or warnings are needed immediately. And this helps prepare the public sooner, especially when storm surge or wind impacts are expected but are still a few days away.
Great information, Evan. Thanks so much. My producer got in my ear and said they noticed that there was a little Kermit charm hanging there in the cockpit of that Hurricane Hunter. Remember, they've named those planes that they fly into the hurricanes with, those actual Hurricane Hunter aircraft. There is a Kermit, there's a Miss Piggy, and there's a Gonzo. And they all fly into those storms at different missions. So kind of fun to note that. All right, as we take a look at the normals for the Atlantic hurricane season, we typically have 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. Activity from early forecasts for this upcoming year call for slightly above normal activity, but we're going to be getting additional updates, one from NOAA and some additional other forecasting groups from different universities are starting to put out more. We'll be passing those along over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the start of hurricane season. I also wanted to touch on the rip currents, and again, we talk about the threats here with the rip currents. I can tell you right now, areas off to the north have the greater risk of rip currents as you head up along the New England coast. We still have a moderate threat along the Virginia Beach coastline. All right, we talked about April coming up, and again, we are into this warm start of May, but we wanted to give you some more detail looking back here in Virginia and Northeast North Carolina, how things really played out during the month of April. Believe it or not, 2025 was one of the top 5 warmest Aprils ever recorded in Norfolk. Meteorologist Tim Pandages looks back at the last 30 days.
Well, that's a wrap on April 2025, and it was a notably warm month. Out of the 30 days, 17 came in above average. The monthly average temperature climbed from 65 at the start of the month to 74 by the end. And when we take into account all the daily highs and lows, the overall average temperature for April landed at 64.4. That's 4.4 degrees above normal. Now, that's a significant departure, making April 2025 the 3rd warmest April on record for Norfolk. Now, one standout moment occurred early in the month on April 6th when Norfolk hit an afternoon high of 91 degrees. That reading ties with 2010 as the second earliest 90-degree day on record since 1946. The earliest, you might ask? April the 3rd of 1963. Now, temperatures continued to rise steadily throughout the month just as planting season got underway across Hampton Roads. But while it was warm, rainfall didn't quite keep pace. The region finished the month with a rainfall deficit of about 3/4 of an inch. Now, will this warmer than average trend continue into May? We'll be watching to find out. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages.
All right, Tim, some really interesting information there. I knew we had that super early 91, and I knew April was warm, but I didn't realize it was that warm compared to the records. Here's a look at our sky view, the Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. It's a little breezy out there. You'll notice the flags there on Schooner, Virginia. And the air blowing as we do have this south wind and southwest wind that's been kind of gusting at times up around 20 miles per hour. You can see a little bit of rippling along the Elizabeth River. Things are actually looking pretty good right now. We can check in with Norfolk International. Southwest winds 20 miles per hour at 73 degrees, dew points in the low 60s. Out on the water today, we're going to see some gusts up around 20 knots or so, 25 knots out on the ocean waters east of Virginia Beach. So you might encounter a little bit of chop out there, but generally the seas have been running 2 to 3 feet. Low tide, we came through that just before 8 o'clock this morning. We've got a high tide coming up at 1:47. All right, we've got more heat and humidity for today, and we're going to talk about that as we go forward. Our UV index 8.3 today. So again, that is very high. Now we're going to pass along the allergy report. Tree pollen is moderate. This is around Hampton Roads in Norfolk. Grass pollen is low. But allergy sufferers, well, you know all too well how miserable this year has been at times this spring and how typically it can be this time of year. For many, though, it may feel as if their conditions are getting worse and started maybe a little earlier this year compared to years in the past. ABC's chief climate correspondent Ginger Z shares what's changed.
For many, spring is an exhilarating time of year when trees come back to life and flowers bloom. But for others, like me, it's a return of their dreaded allergies. And some allergy sufferers are finding that their symptoms are getting worse every year, while also having to endure them for longer. Dr. Neela Tamala, an ear, nose, and throat physician at NYU Langone Health, says that climate change is partly to blame.
One of the main greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, which is really driving climate change, that increases the amount of plant and tree growth, which allows the trees to produce more pollen. So on average, there's about 20% more pollen in the atmosphere now as compared to 50 years ago.
Dr. Tamala says warmer global temperatures can shorten the freeze season, allowing trees to begin growing much earlier. In addition to pollen, the growth of allergens like mold are also impacted by climate change.
We're seeing a lot more extreme weather events, and this includes hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding events. All of these water-fueled events increase the risk of mold growth.
To manage symptoms, consult your physician about whether you might need to adjust your medication.
Because the pollen is appearing earlier in the year, you may want to go ahead and start your medications a little bit earlier. The intranasal steroid sprays specifically take about 2 weeks to be optimally effective.
Be sure to check pollen levels before you get outside. Wear a mask to limit the amount of pollen that you inhale. Change your clothes when you get home. And maybe take a shower. That can minimize your exposure to allergens. And be vigilant when it comes to mold to avoid spores from contaminating your home. Experts expect these allergy trends will continue if we don't mitigate global warming and climate change.
I think of climate solutions as health solutions because anything that we do to make the environment we live in healthier is only going to make all of us healthier.
With this Climate Minute, I'm Ginger Z.
All right, I mentioned just a moment ago, we are dealing with more heat and humidity today and tomorrow. And, you know, this time of year, we talk about the rise of temperatures. Obviously, we just covered the rise in pollen levels. But there is another tiny but dangerous threat that makes a comeback this time of year. We're talking about ticks. The blood-sucking pests are more than just a nuisance. They can carry serious diseases that harm both pets and humans. Taylor Leverett from our sister station in Greensboro, North Carolina, has more.
Some things
I got him for like $50.
Are too good to be true. This is Kilo.
His trigger word is yes. So if he hears that word, he's like, oh.
His dad, Benjamin Rakestraw, says he loves tree twigs, a tail-wagging chew toy riddled with tiny terrors.
Ticks. He had a couple last year, right around this time of year, around springtime when everything starts blooming and the bugs start coming out.
Rakestraw is not the only one tackling ticks.
We see ticks year-round.
Dr. Claudia Sims, a veterinarian in Greensboro, says beat the itch with tick protection.
If you're going out in the woods especially, or places where there's tall grass, your dogs could get exposed to ticks. Well, they carry a lot of diseases, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Ehrlichia, Lyme disease, all things that can make the dogs very sick. And so prevention is the best way.
Simple protection on the skin or in a pill, keeping you from getting ticked off by these tantalizing ticks.
You want to get a hold of it and just slowly pull it off like with a pair of tweezers.
It's all things Benjamin is remembering.
He gets outside a bunch, it's best to make sure he's taken care of.
While Kilo was a good deal and is overall priceless, he doesn't want to spend more than he has.
All right, here on the weather desk, if you are a regular viewer and you turn to the weather desk for these types of interesting stories, you know one of the things we like to do is occasionally turn our attention from things happening on the ground and in the lower atmosphere, of course, the weather we track. We like to look up and talk about what's going on in space. And we've got some exciting innovations in the world of aerospace. The MagDrive, a startup company in the UK, is developing a new lightweight type of thruster propulsion for satellites and other spacecraft, which could change the game for equipment in low Earth orbit. It's called the Rogue Thruster, and it uses a pulsed plasma propulsion system, which draws power from the sun. Now, this is crazy. Weighing just 5.5 pounds, it will supposedly have increased power and a fuel supply that will last far longer than traditional satellite technologies. MagDrive's co-founder and CEO explains how it works.
So MagDrive is developing a high-power electric plasma thruster for satellites and spacecraft. So once the launch vehicle has dropped a satellite off in orbit, a satellite propulsion system is needed to move it around in space, to take it to different orbits, to accomplish different maneuvers, including getting it out of the way of other satellites. At the moment, those options are really limited. You can either have a lot of thrust, or you can have a lot of miles per gallon, or efficiency. We're building the best of both worlds with a system which has the same high efficiency as existing systems, but with a magnitude improvement in thrust, with a magnitude reduction in volume and mass. That means that we can open up entirely new capabilities and services for satellites to maneuver without regret and to go to entirely new orbits than they could before.
It's pretty wild. Now, the company says the new system is vital as Earth's orbit becomes more and more crowded with all of these satellites that are running out of fuel. MagDrive will test its new thruster aboard a satellite mission from private company D-Orbit. Once this new thruster is finished, MagDrive says it has plans for an even more powerful thruster that can be refueled while in space. Stay tuned. We'll keep a close eye to that and keep you updated. Right now, it's time to talk to you about what's going on here for the weekend, something we love at 13 News Now. It's the Springtown Point Park, Virginia Wine Fest. Such a great time. And it looks like the weather's going to cooperate on Saturday. Should be mostly sunny. Obviously, it's going to be warm here with temperatures in the upper 80s. Tons of people, thousands turn out at Town Point Park to enjoy the wine festival. I will mention a very low risk of a storm, only about 15 to 20% the chances, but I do want folks to at least be mindful something could try to pop up. I don't think most of the day will be impacted at all, but we'll be watching for that tomorrow. Showers are going to be likely on Sunday, and that's a little bit of a bummer, but it will be cooler. And again, so many of the folks that go out there spend time in the chalets, and you may be able to beat the rain out there a little bit. So if you're going out Sunday, just know there's a better chance for showers, but at least it will be a little cooler and more comfortable there at the park. So that's a look ahead to the Wine Fest. Maybe you've got plans to get away up to D.C., 82 chances for storms, 84 in Richmond. Again, we could see some late afternoon or evening storms developing in these areas. Better chances for wet weather coming up on Sunday. It will be cooler, but I do anticipate showers and maybe some thunderstorms on Sunday. Now, the chances for rain today, pretty minimal through most of the day. Might see a stray shower or two early to mid-afternoon, but the better chances for the scattered wet weather will come late afternoon and into the evening. Most of that activity is going to develop down to the south, and then it may spread to the north. We'll see. As we look ahead to Saturday, looking pretty good. Slight risk of a stray shower or storm during the afternoon. Still going to be warm, so we'll watch for that. Most of Saturday should be okay. Sunday, our rain chances go up. Let's get into our future cast and talk about about what's going on today. Some clouds, some sunshine. As we get into the afternoon, you start to see some isolated cells popping up. We could see a little bit of that late afternoon. Most of the evening looks pretty good as we get into your Saturday. The morning looks great. You can see around midday, we're still looking pretty good for most of Hampton Roads. Could see a stray shower, maybe an isolated storm pop up here or there, but chances are pretty slim tomorrow. You'll notice some of the heavier rain off to the west. Now, we're going to expand this view and take you through the rest of the weekend, and this is based on the European model. I mentioned a lot of the heavier rain on Saturday out to the west. As we get into early Sunday, showers overtake the region. We'll see opportunities for rain kind of off and on. By Monday, again, more isolated to scattered showers, but still the showers kind of hanging in. And even Tuesday, we'll see chances for showers. Things should improve as we get into Wednesday. You see the rain chances here. In a nutshell, a few isolated showers or storms possible this afternoon. Should be drier Saturday. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, 60%, 50%, 40%, 30%. It goes back down each day as we head into next week. And again, this is just one of the models of futurecast rainfall. Really not much for Hampton Roads over the next, say, 36 hours or so, but some of these areas out to the west kind of show you where we do get a few of those heavier cells moving through. We could get some pretty significant rain. Again, several models here over the next 48 hours. Generally, most of them, not a lot, maybe up to, say, a third of an inch or so. The NAM, one of our higher res models, does bite on that idea of a storm or two passing over Norfolk. Temperatures right now in the low 70s, and as we head through the afternoon, highs will be in the upper 80s, so a warm day today. Eastern Shore a little cooler, low 80s. We'll see upper 80s for the peninsula, mid 80s for the middle peninsula, and along the Outer Banks, low 80s there, upper 80s inland. Tonight's low down around 68, low risk of a shower or storm. Tomorrow back up to 87, mostly sunny. There is that low risk of a stray storm tomorrow afternoon. Better chances for the wet weather on Sunday. Monday showers likely, and into Tuesday. I think things will settle out as we go late Tuesday into Wednesday. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. Remember, you can always download our 13 News Now app by scanning that QR code, and you'll have access to radar and weather updates. It's a great resource. Have a great weekend, and remember, you'll always find us here Monday through Friday at 13 News Now Plus at the Weather Desk each weekday morning starting at 9. Have a great weekend.